The biggest mistake I see people making financially right now is not adhering to delayed gratification.
What is the correct mindset to have when dealing with money?
I think the correct mindset to deal with money correctly is going to not be living from a scarcity mindset. All right, far too many times we live in the scarcity mindset where we want things now, so we sacrifice kind of like our overall financial future because we're going to pay for it later. And as a result, we increase our debt. That increases our risk. As we increase our risk, a life event happens like they all do all the time. No one's gone from birth till death without having some kind of major financial life event. It just doesn't happen, right? Now, what you can do is you can set yourself up for better success by being prepared for such of these times or these financial storms, if you will. And the best way to do that is to keep your debt low, right? You'll find that people that are highly successful with money spend a lot of time learning the best way to manage it, the best place to invest it. You're going to find that you probably notice I don't dress in Armani suits and stuff like that because to me it's a waste of money. Sorry, Armani, right? I would rather invest that in helping someone in need. I would rather feed a child. I would rather do something that's going to help me build a financial future and help me build compound interest. A lot of the things that make up my wealth today has little to nothing to do with a lot of my businesses. Most of my personal income and wealth comes from real estate, right? Stuff that I've done on the side. Now, I use my earning potential to earn enough, essentially cash or capital, as we like to refer to it, to create a investment portfolio that just took time, right? We're building a brand new house. That brand new house is built with capital that I have from essentially real estate purchases and sales and acquisitions and stuff like that. However, I wouldn't have been put in that position to actually maintain or take advantage of certain financial opportunities to create compound interest for myself or added streams of revenue or capital or cash, if you will, had I not done the easy stuff right first, right? The Ramsey team, I actually think they do a pretty decent job of setting you up on a stable foundation. Now, there's a lot of different opinions on
Dave Ramsey.
Yeah, how do you build wealth from there? But I would agree with him on the fact that you need to keep debt low as possible, if not completely eradicated. I would agree with him on you need to have I would agree with him that you need to have enough money saved to kind of deal with Murphy or deal with things that come up. My own daughter recently had her HVAC unit freeze up, right? She's a brand new homeowner. She wasn't expecting that, right? She wasn't expecting to come home and see ice on her AC unit.
Yeah.
She's going, Dad, what's going on? I don't know what's going on. I'm like, well, just go clean your air filters. Oh, you gotta change your air filters? You see what I'm saying? I mean, it's just silly stuff that's going to happen. It's going to, not long ago, another one of my kids had a major flat tire, right? And no savings to deal with the flat tire. And as a result, they put themselves in a position where if they didn't have a parent like myself who could, at least help train them or help them in that moment, they would have had to take on debt.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's where I think a lot of people start with debt.
Well, yeah. And, I hate to say it, but the reality is our American culture is get it now, pay for it later, which opens us up to risk. It opens us up to future problems. However, the people who make the most money or have a continual stream of income or can weather the biggest storms, oftentimes are not buying a lot of stuff when the market's like super hot, right? When they have this quote unquote bear market, they're watching it kind of work. They've got their capital kind of set to the side. And then all of a sudden the economy takes a dump. What do? That's when they buy.
That's what's
because
so
everything's on sale.
It's funny because if you look at the most successful people financially in the world, they act completely opposite what most people do.
Yeah. Well, and again, the people who are super successful with financial matters do things differently for a reason, right? They've had the benefit of having someone else teach them the different facets that help create that level of wealth. The vast majority of the population, we call them the 67% or the 70 percentile of the population, lives paycheck to paycheck at best. At best. Okay? That tells you there's a glaring problem between the knowledge that they have now versus the knowledge they need. It's no secret. I think I've said this on many other videos. I know I've said it from stage. I know I've said it on podcasts, but one of the greatest things that Steve Myrick ever did for me, my first mentor, when I was young, I was a young teenager, that he ever shared with me is this question. And he said, Stephen, what's the difference between a rich man and a poor man? And in that moment, I was kind of I was like, well, duh, money, right? That's kind of like the first thought that popped in my head.
Yeah.
Like, well, one guy's got money, one guy doesn't. And it's absolutely not true. What he taught me is the difference between a rich man and a poor man, so to speak, or a rich person and a poor person, right, is the way they think, right? He taught me this one thing that he referred to as investing. Now, when I say investing, I don't necessarily mean the stock market or inventory or houses or businesses or whatever. What he taught me was investing in a mentality that says, I'm always going to be putting money to work for me and not against me. He told me that a rich person, for example, is always looking for opportunities to grow revenue lanes, grow cash, grow different ways of bringing this money to the surface to allow you to have more resources to then diversify further, invest further, and put compound interest and investments to work better for you. Whereas someone who's going to be quote unquote poor, and in America, poor is living paycheck to paycheck. Okay? That means if you don't get a check next month, your whole world falls apart. Right? If you look at those two different distinctive behavior systems, I had the illustration of Steve Myrick, who taught me how to invest, what to invest in, what to look out for, how to watch out for debt, how to stay away from debt, how to utilize cash to make it better for me. And I also had in the moment, and I love him to death, right? My father. And on Friday, it wasn't uncommon for him to say, "Well, I worked all week, I earned it, I get to spend it." Someone who's going to be poor is going to constantly be spending. Someone who's going to end up becoming wealthy is constantly investing. In other words, one person is living for today, one's creating a foundation for tomorrow and all the years after that.
That's really good. What is the difference between a saver's mentality versus an investor's mentality? Because I hear a lot of people saying you can't save your way to success.
All right. Well, again, I am of the opinion that a very small percentage of your income needs to be in what the Ramseys refer to as the emergency fund. All the emergency fund is, it's the savings that you need in case there's right? Tire goes flat, HVAC unit goes out, windshield gets cracked, right? Where it doesn't wreck your entire financial future. Most people get that confused with, well, I got to take all the money that I've got and I've got to put it in savings, right? The best bank in the world, you might get a quarter point.
Like an interest point?
Interest point, okay. At best. Your next level up is going to be a money market. All right, a money market might get you close to a point.
Is that like stocks?
No, a money market is essentially letting the bank kind of deploy the capital at times, but it's there if you need it. So that being said, the other way to look at it is, where can I deploy money? For example, I've got a home that my wife and I currently live in. Okay, that home is paid for. Now, we worked really hard to pay that house off early. I'm in my, we'll say early 40s, but it's really mid 40s. Okay, it's the second home that I've paid for in my lifetime. Okay, contrast that to my parents, my grandparents, and people before me. They were always taught to buy a house, live in the house, take 30 years to pay the joker off. What Steve taught me to do, for example, is take a little capital, like 20%, put it down, get your first house, plan only being there 2 years, which means you're not going to go in there and like spend a lot of time like, zhuzhing the land, zhuzhing the house, making it perfect. Making it perfect, right? He said, spend 2 years in that house, then sell that house, and essentially in typical markets, right? We're talking long term, we're not talking every year, okay? A typical house will actually increase in value anywhere from 4 to 10% on an annual basis in a year.
Oh, so if you take $100,000, put it in a house, it's going to make you, what'd you say, how much percent?
You call it anywhere from 4 to 10%. It depends on the economy.
It can make you $4,000 to $10,000 in a year by you parking it there versus just letting it sit in an account, which is why people say no.
And then 2 years later, you take that same house and you sell it. You have what you now call equity. You have the equity is made up of the value increase of the house that happened. Maybe you made some improvements, maybe you didn't, but at minimum, you're going to have an increase in the value of the home, okay? You're also going to have the same value of the money that you put down, okay? So in this case, we'll call it, maybe you put $20,000 down the first time. It took you forever to save it, Okay, let's just say it took me forever to save it, right? But I got it. Okay, when I say forever, most people can save it in 3 years if they work really hard and they're really committed. You know, like someone like yourself who's in their early 20s. I mean, you're talking about buying your first house when you're like 27, 28, 29 years old. Okay, that's still really early for most people to achieve the American dream, so to speak. You take that appraisal value or that new increase in value, which is your equity, which is the cash that you put in, okay, the payments that you made minus the interest, and then also the increase in market value of the home itself. You then take that house and you sell it. Okay. Now, when you sell that house, you're going to take all the extra proceeds outside of paying the note off, the bank loan, and you're going to buy a slightly more expensive house. And I say slightly, I'm talking like 15 to 20%. Okay. So if your first house was a $100,000 house, your next house is a $130,000 house, $120,000 house. You take all the down payment and you dump it on that one. Okay.
So everything that's left over from the first house investment with all the equity and everything,
exactly,
you're rolling that into a second house,
exactly,
which is also going to go up in value.
Typically, by the time you get to your 8th to 10th house, which is a 10-year, which is in many cases, well, I would say that I did mine within 20 years. So within 20 years time frame, which is shorter than the average time the person takes to pay off the first house. Okay, because most people finance for 30 years. Most people do. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say it's very different because most people are like 10 houses. What?
Yeah, the thing is you got to understand you're playing the long game. You're not the biggest mistake I see people making financially right now is not adhering to delayed gratification.
So they
want it now. I want the nice car now. I want the nice house now. I want the big screen now. I want. And the reason they want it is not necessarily just because they want it. It's because they want to be able to show their friends that they're successful.
But it cripples them financially.
The best blessing I ever had was after coming back from my financial downfall, where I had repossessions and I couldn't get credit. It forced me to use cash. That's when I started this program that Steve taught me a long time ago. And as a result, the house that we bought, paid off and everything in 2016, for example, 2017, I now have, I'll call it several hundred thousands of dollars of equity in that house. I'm now using that money to build my new house, and this new house is worth more than the old house, and that new house is not only worth more than the new house, but it will be virtually paid for. And it's our dream home.
All because you started small.
All because you started small and built your way up. All because for example, I'll just be candid with you. They have a brand new Corvette out, mid-engine Corvette. That sucker is sexy.
It's sweet, yeah.
All right. Now, people have akin it to, Lamborghinis and Ferraris. I mean, they intentionally made that car look bad, right? I would love to go out and just stroke a check and buy that car.
I'd love to see you get one too.
Right? Well, yeah, because you want to hop in it, right?
Yeah.
But I have to put my priorities in order, right? My priority says I can go stroke a check for $75,000 to $100,000 and buy me a nice car, or I can help my kid pay for college where he doesn't have college debt. You see what I'm saying? It's about priorities. It's about making sure that you're setting yourself up for a financial future that can actually breathe life into yourself. Again, people who are super successful in finance are always looking for different ways to invest it in such a way that gives them the benefit of compound interest. Okay? Sometimes, and there's different schools of thought. What I would recommend is, rather than me telling you where you need to put your money and what to invest in, because what worked for me may not work well for you because you might be in a different area of the country, is to get a financial professional to help you with that process. Be willing to lay down what you want for 5 to 10 years, like what you really want, like the perfect dream or whatever. Just lay it down. Because the difference between being 20 and 30 nowadays, years old, is minimal. Like, I'm in my early 40s, mid 40s really. All right, I'm in my mid 40s and I feel like I'm 20 years old, 25 years old, just a lot smarter. Because when I was 20, I was an idiot. I mean, for lack of a better word, I did what everybody else did. I wanted a nice car. My 98 Camaro that I had to voluntarily give back to the bank, for example, was the first Camaro they had on the lot. And then I went and spent another $1,500 that I didn't have, putting a nice subwoofer sound in it. So when I was coming down the road, people would hear me boom, 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 boom.
I've been in cars like that,
right?
Where it's really excessive. It's not even really comfortable to ride in them because
it's not.
Yeah.
And here's the deal. Cars, airplanes, things of that nature are depreciating assets. They depreciate over time, and unless you're in business for yourself, you are not going to get the benefit, the tax benefit of a depreciating asset. Instead, what you are doing is killing your net worth.
So most people, what they're doing wrong is A, they're using debt, but B, they're putting their cash into things that are depreciating in value rather than appreciating.
Exactly. I put most of my income, now again, I teach, I've taught you, I've taught my daughter, I've taught my kids, I've even taught my team within my businesses, okay, this principle of being patient, right? I've taught them all that you got to make sure that you stay out of debt, which keeps you out of trouble, that you take the liquidity that you have, or the cash. So if I say capital liquidity, I just mean cash. The cash that you have, and look at deploying it. Deploying it means nothing more than putting it someplace where it can grow. And then you forget about it. It's not your uh-oh money, okay? It's not your junk drawer, right? You have to have this principle of understanding that it's going to take time. And if you can't wrap your head around delayed gratification and just being patient, then you're going to have a hell of a time winning. Because most people will get married somewhere around their mid to late 20s, not be financially stable, which means they bring non-financially stable with non-financially stable, which means it's more non-financially stable. And now a couple has to dig out. Okay, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like there's all these different facets about making sure that you put the money to work for you, not against you. And again, if you don't have money right now, or you're not able to get credit, it's probably the best thing for you. It was the best thing for me, right? It taught me how to be creative. It taught me how to budget. It taught me how to grind. It taught me how to earn extra income, where to put that money, right? You want to invest it in such a way that allows you to grow it, right? I'm at a point in life where for the most part, my wife and I can come and go as we please, and then use those resources to bless other people. I promise you, the value of this brand new car, this brand new sexy thing that's a depreciating asset versus a home that's an appreciating asset that increases in value, right? The value between those is one's going to take you to poverty and one's going to take you to wealth. The choice is yours. Either you're going to spend a bunch of money getting into debt, buying things that don't appreciate in value, or you're going to be strategy. You're going to use a strategy. You're going to be smart, and you're going to put things to work to create things that appreciate in value, right? And you know, recently we had this thing with Robinhood and whatnot with GameStop. Okay, those are one-hit wonders.
Yeah.
Somehow some people got lucky. One of my kids, their best friend made 50 grand off a $2,000 investment. Fantastic, but it's not going to stay that way. Right? Your best thing is to do the slow approach, right? What is it, the old thing, the tortoise and the hare always wins? Right? Because the tortoise is running to the end, he gets overconfident.
The tortoise always wins.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the tortoise always wins, but the hare gets overconfident and he's doing this thing, he takes a nap because he thinks he's got it all in the bag.
Yeah.
Right? It's the same thing as getting life and having life bite you in the butt. Slow and steady, compound your money, and make it work for you.
It makes a lot of sense. So let's talk about myths for just a second, because there's a lot of, I've heard money myths, like a lot of different people say that. Would you say that there's a lot of misconceptions, myths around money?
Most of the myths around money are totally generated towards a marketing industry.
What do you mean by that?
We are taught in the American population, again, that our discomfort is because we don't have this thing. Our inadequacy is because we don't have this thing. The reason we're not being successful is because we don't have this. The illustration of success is always the people who are driving nice stuff, having nice stuff, and whatever. And it doesn't matter whether or not they're in great deals of debt to own all that stuff.
Yeah, I guess they never really focus on that.
They never really focus on that. So when it comes down to it, most of the myths about money, which are, what do you call it? It's free money. No big deal. It's free money. I get airline miles. I get all this kind of stuff. I've never seen anybody that really gets wealthy off that stuff.
Oh yeah.
Right? They have a perk. But here's the thing. Over 80% of the credit card companies know that over 80% of people are going to default or come in late on their first, second, third, fourth month of paying their monthly payment. As soon as that happens, the interest rate goes up. The next thing you know, now it takes more to cover that debt. You see what I'm saying? Like, the system's stacked against you unless you choose not to play in the system.
A lot of people, I think, with their mind would go there and say, well, you have to have money to make money, right? You have to have money to be able to invest first. Yeah. Is that another money myth, that you have to have money to make money?
From my perspective, it is. I can tell you that when I started investing in a brighter future for myself, I didn't have a whole lot of money. Even going with the principle of setting aside, 10 to 15% of what you got going on. If you got $10, set aside $1. Do something. You need to build that muscle memory to get you into great things. I'm a firm believer. There's a biblical principle that says if you are faithful with the little, you will be made master over much. Okay? I have used that one principle. Now, it's a biblical principle. For those of you who don't share my faith, that's okay. But it's still a principle that produces fruit, right? As I've been responsible with the little bit that I've had, I've been able to turn that into more. And then I can use that same principle. Well, what I have today is X. I'm going to be patient. I'm going to be a great steward. I'm going to use delayed gratification. I'm going to put it to work for myself, and I'm going to have more. I have yet to be able to outwork that principle, meaning make that principle null and void, right? If you can learn to be faithful with the little bit that you have, in time, you will be made master over much because your character will have built to prepare the pathway for you to actually obtain at that level. Does that make sense?
Powerful. Yeah, very powerful. Okay, so final question. Final question is going to be this. Success, wealth, all of these things are things that most people chase.
Yeah.
And because most people chase them, I would think that they would have a positive connotation. However, what's interesting is realizing that these days, there seems to be like this massively negative stigma around wealthy or successful people. A lot of them are hated. Yeah. Why do you think that is?
I think the best way to answer that question is to tell you a story. When I began building my first business, I was working 7 days a week, roughly 18 hours a day. And I mean that literally. I would get up at like what we call in the South the butt crack of dawn.
Yeah.
Okay. I would get up at dawn, essentially. I'd go to work while I was doing the physical work, because it was a construction company. I would go run a lead for a new customer, which means I'd come down from doing what I was doing. I would change my clothes with my BO and everything, and I would put on khakis, put on my polo shirt. Then I would go meet the customer, try to sell them on my services, right? And then I would get back in the car and I would drive back to the place, take off that clothes, put back on my construction clothes, and go back to work. And then I would work till dark. Okay. When I got done with that, I'd load everything up. I'd tow the big trailer behind me. I would stop at a Wendy's, not a Winnie's. I would stop at a Wendy's. I would get some food, right? And I would eat it on the way home. I would get in the door. I'd take the blueprints or whatever that I got from the customer earlier that day. I would then put them out on my table, and then I would do quotes all night long until about 1 a.m.
Oh my gosh, dude. Okay? When did you sleep?
At 1 a.m., I would go to bed. I would then get 4.5 to 5 hours of sleep, and I would get up and do it again. And that was my life for probably the first 4 years in business. In fact, the first 4 years in business, I didn't take a single day off. Not a rain day, not a sick day, not a holiday.
No weekends?
Nothing.
Really?
Okay. Now, again, the benefit to me was my back was against the wall.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't have a choice. That was the benefit. Because had I had a choice, I'm sure I may not have actually put in that effort. So the best thing you can do is not have a choice or take all choices away. Right? I say all that to say that was the sacrifice that I was playing. Meanwhile, as I began to become more and more financially successful, I began to have family members come to me on a regular basis and ask me for money on a regular basis. So much so that I put 1 or 2 of them on payroll for a little while. I know that sounds crazy, but I did.
Just for doing stuff? Or?
Well, because here's the lie. And I'm going to set this down for a second. Here's the lie. When you start to develop, and this is important. I want everybody to pay attention to this. Okay, especially if you're going after it like your life depends on it. This is like super important. When you're going after a financial future that is stable, you are going to have people that come after that financial success. Okay, I don't mean that they are not coming to you from a malicious place. They are coming to you from a poverty mindset, an area of lack. Okay. In this specific instance, these people that were coming to me asking me for resources would always say this. Well, family helps family. Family helps family. I did not realize at the moment that me giving them money for work that they didn't do after paying that kind of sacrifice was not helping them. It was allowing them to blow money, realize they didn't have any more, realize that they had a light bill or a water bill or something, and come to me like, I don't have enough money this month for the light bill, the water, I don't have enough. And it finally dawned on me that I was actually enabling them to actually build a strong financial future by constantly giving them money.
How often did that actually happen? Because I know I've heard of that happening to successful people a lot. And every time they seem to give, the person just seems to squander it because they don't really appreciate the blessing. Is that really that common? Because there's a lot of people who are like, no, I wouldn't do that. If you give me a chance, then I can make it all right. How come most of the time that's not the case?
Well, I would tell you this much. Before I actually began to develop the muscle memory or the financial mindset to begin to manage money in general, not even wealth, but money in general, I can tell you that I did that to Steve several times. I would go to Steve and I would ask for money. And it always just dumbfounded me that he wouldn't give it to me, but he would give it to my dad. He was forcing me to work and to grow and to mature and to earn and to invest and to build a stronger thing. It actually saved me in a lot of ways. I'm convinced right now that the wealth that God has allowed me to be blessed to steward at this moment in my life, whether big or small, because it depends on which avenue you're looking at, right? Yeah. A billionaire's looking at me going like, it's all right. People that are paycheck to paycheck, like he's doing really well, right? Yeah. It's all about perspective. I can tell you that when I began that journey, I began to shift this entire thing and I began to invest, that those people who say that are really saying that I don't know that I'm worth the effort of developing that skill. Again, the people that came to me weren't coming out of malicious intent. They weren't coming from a place of but they were coming from a place of expectation. Well, my last name's Scoggins. Like, dude, I see you at Christmas. Like, what? You know what I'm saying? Meanwhile, I'll see somebody who's actually working as hard as they can possibly work, doing as much as they can possibly do. That's the person that I'll typically slide, just as Steve taught me to do, that I'll slide some income under a napkin at a restaurant or something, or put it in somebody's check or do something nice. I've discovered that the more that I give to other people from a financial place, the more they expect me to continue it and to grow it. Right? There's a commonality around the business where I'm like, you don't get paid, you don't get an increase for breathing. You get an increase for performing.
Yeah.
Are you bringing value? Are you helping us create a business that produces success for other people? Because if I gave increases just for breathing, there'd be no motivation for people to actually carry the business forward, right? I learned it from Steve, same principle. If you are going to steward wealth, you have to learn to steward finance. You can't steward wealth without learning to steward finance first.
That's powerful. So if you aren't the type of person who has built the financial habits to handle the small amounts of money first, you're not. It's like the quote you said earlier. If you're faithful with the little, you'll be made master over much.
Yep. If you're faithful with the little, you'll be made master over much. Steve forced me to be faithful with the little. He forced me to. And in the moment, I used to hate it. I'm like, the dude's got all kinds of money. Why won't he just give me some money? Why won't he help me get this car? Why won't he help me get the down payment? I'll work it off.
That's the attitude that I think the people who hate wealthy people are coming from.
But see, that's entitlement. They don't fully understand that most wealthy people, the vast majority of wealth that's created today in this economy, is what's called first generation wealth. First generation wealth are people who, like myself, who basically went out and worked their ever-loving butts off to create it. Right?
So most wealth is not handed down by generations.
Most wealth is not handed down. Now, there is a population of what's called second and third and fourth generation wealth, right? Rockefellers, Rothschilds, the Fords, right? People that, on the Ford Motor Company. There is pipelines of those people. The people who are in today's market economy, there's a reason why they say more millionaires have been created in the last 5 years than they've ever done before. It's because these people are going out and grinding. They're going out and trying to figure it out. They're going out, they're not spending a bunch of money on debt.
Which is what creates wealth to begin with.
Which is what creates wealth to begin with.
Got it.
You give me somebody who shows me that they're operating in that financial grit where they're trying to invest it, they're trying to do the right thing, they're trying to save it, they're not getting heavily involved in debt, they're operating in delayed gratification, they're operating in the grit, they're operating in the grind. That's the person I want to help. But here's what I've learned, and Steve taught me this as well. It's not the amount of resources that I give them. It's the amount of influence that I give them. It's the amount of new change, new perspective, new shift. Right? Your financial successful future, Brian's financial successful future, is going to be built based on you guys identifying the principles that have worked for me, that also work for Steve, that also work for his mentor. You see what I'm saying?
So the greatest thing a wealthy person can really do is not to give other people money, but it's to teach them how to steward it.
It's exactly right. It's exactly right. Entitlement will be erased when people simply get busy with their future. I discovered that the only person who was responsible for my future and my success was me. Me. I'm a high school dropout, suicide, almost committed suicide. Like, if you look at the story of my life, there's absolutely no reason why I should be successful other than the fact that I took Steve's word at face value, I applied the principles that he taught me, and now I get to live the promises that are hidden in those principles. No amount of school, no amount of adversity, like, stop making excuses for yourself. They don't like how I look. They don't like how I act. They don't like where I come from. So what? So what? It's your job to make your future possible. In finance, in love, in spiritual nature, it's your responsibility. This is your life. You're the only one actually living it. So live it to the fullest. Model people that are already living that successful behavior on a regular basis. Figure out what they do and do that. And you'll be successful.
Wow. Super powerful stuff, man. Thank you as always.
I hope you're getting a lot from the videos in this channel. And if you did, you're really going to love this video right here. Check it out. You know, to be a quote-unquote millionaire, there are a lot of steps, a lot of sacrifices, a lot of contributions, a lot of time, a lot of learning, a lot of growth. There's a ton there. At the same time, if you don't have a routine that allows for you to grow, then becoming a millionaire